Solitaire Radio, episode 69, Twin Peaks has returned.
Darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, walk with me.
In 1986, I went with 4 friends to see the movie Blue Velvet. It was playing at the college we went to. The theater next to the college would have a art film once a month on Wednesdays. And I worked at the theater, so I was able to get in free with a friend, and 3 other friends went because we hung out a lot together, but also a couple of the friends and I were more artsy film nerds. And while Dune had been a huge disappointment, Blue Velvet had gotten good reviews. It was talked about as being a very serious, very important film, a game changer, a real game changer. And the lights went down, and a whole new world opened up. When the lights came back up, myself and my friend Ann Wart Chow were both enthralled. We thought it was the most fascinating film we'd seen in years. We couldn't wait to talk about the ideas and the visuals and the way it told the story. 2 of my other friends, Jimmy White and Dan Callahan, hated it. Matter of fact, Jimmy could not put into words why he hated it. He just had a visceral hatred for the movie. He didn't think it was a bad story. He didn't think the acting was bad. He just hated it. And another of my friends, Ron Allred, fell asleep. And that's how David Lynch's work has always been. It's been fascinating and visual and filled with ideas. And some people love it and some people hate it and some people don't get it. And I'm not saying that those who don't get it aren't smart. They just don't look at the world in a way that fits David Lynch's vision. A few years later, I heard that Lynch was going to be teaming up with Mark Frost, who was a writer and producer on the show Hill Street Blues, and they were going to do a mystery set in a small town using Kyle MacLachlan, who was the lead in Blue Velvet, and the way it was talked about in the magazines, it was Blue Velvet as a soap opera. I, of course, was fascinated. I could not wait. I worked at Schindler's at the time, which was a magazine store that also sold comics and books, and I've talked about it on Crazy Comics and Stories a lot, but magazines, especially film magazines, were going on and on and on about how this was going to be a game changer. This was going to be important television. And it was a time when television really wasn't all that good. You know, there were some good shows on. There was Cheers, there was L.A. Law, there were things that were well written, they were well acted, but they still had the same look that TV had always had, because TV was a medium about telling the story. It wasn't about the visuals. It wasn't about cinematography. It was you set the camera on the tripod and you film it. And if you look at TV dramas from the 60s to the 80s, they all look pretty much the same. There were things here and there. You know, Hill Street Blues got progressively grimier and dirtier and felt more lived in. But for the most part, TV looked like TV. Movies look like movies. And Twin Peaks came, and it was a huge success that first season, which at the time confused me, and the older I get, the more it confuses me, because it was not normal television. Yes, you had the MacGuffin, which is the thing that starts the story that really doesn't matter. And both Lynch and Frost said that it was a MacGuffin, and have many times said they didn't want to ever solve the mystery that got people hooked. And that is, who killed Laura Palmer? When I watched it, I knew that Who Killed Laura Palmer and the death of Laura Palmer and Agent Cooper coming to the town of Twin Peaks was just the way to get the story started, to bring us in and get us interested in all the weird, quirky things that happen around the town. And you had Lynch's humor, you had Lynch's dreamlike imagery, and you had his philosophy. And as the series went on the first season, he and Frost were very heavily involved, but it was such a success and so big that both Lynch and Frost were offered huge money deals to do other things. Lynch directed the movie Wild at Heart. Frost wrote other things, got involved in creating other pilots, many of which didn't go anywhere, and they kind of stepped away from Twin Peaks. But the thing I remember was the second season premiere, which was a 2-hour episode, and how it enraged people. Agent Cooper had been shot, all these other cliffhangers had happened, and the episode starts with Agent Cooper on the floor bleeding out as a hotel worker. Very old hotel worker is kind of unable to help him, and Cooper's unable to ask for help. And then it gets into the giant who gives him clues, and it's a very long sequence, and it's a very David Lynch sequence, and it's strung out and strung out and strung out. And the next day at my job, the people who were fans of Twin Peaks, who I'd talked about the series with all summer, were furious. They were mad. When the episode aired, it was during the Renaissance Festival, which is only like about 10 miles from my house. So there were friends of mine who came for the premiere because they wanted to watch TV. And it was close enough to the Renaissance Festival that they could leave and then get back before curfew. Because if you're a performer or an actor or whatever there, they have an actual curfew. So they were able to get here, watch the show, and get back. And again, reaction was mixed. Some of us loved it. Some hated it. And some just didn't get it. And over the second season, it became what the critics had said it was. It was quirky. It was soap opera. It lost the Lynchian quality. There were good things in the show. And when people say that, oh, the second season was terrible, I recently rewatched it. And it's that the first season and the Lynch-Frost episodes were so good that the rest was just kind of okay. It was people trying to do David Lynch until the last two episodes. And the last two episodes, one set up everything in the finale, and then the finale was pure David Lynch. It resolved a couple of the cliffhangers, a couple of the plot lines, created cliffhangers, but there was this extended sequence of Dale Cooper going into the Black Lodge to save Annie, his girlfriend. And the sequences were dreamy and creepy and bizarre and had a dream logic. And a lot of people, when they put a dream on film, they just kind of, well, that's weird, put it in. That's weird, put it in. Lynch uses the dream in a different way, in that it feels like a dream. When you're in a dream, things just shift. They don't transition, they just shift. And things happen that you understand when you're in the dream, but as you get further away from it, they make less and less sense. That last episode has some horrific sequences in it. The scene where Wyndham Earle has his soul taken by Bob. Still, when I watched it again, chills down my spine. And it left with that cliffhanger where Agent Cooper had been replaced by a doppelganger. It was Bob, who'd now taken over a doppelganger of Agent Cooper and was out in the world asking, "How's Annie?" A few years later, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me came out, and many people expected it to wrap up the story and solve the mysteries. Lynch has never been about solving mysteries, so it didn't. It actually went back and filled in the final days of Laura Palmer. And when you go back and watch it now, not wanting it to be a sequel, it's an amazing film about abuse and self-destruction and despair and horror, using the imagery from Twin Peaks, overlaying it. And again, there were people who loved it and people who hated it. Quentin Tarantino, at the time, saw it at Cannes and said he no longer wants to see anything by David Lynch. David Lynch is over. David Lynch is played out. And this is when Pulp Fiction was blowing up. And then it sat for years. There was a plan with the box set that they were going to put in a graphic novel that would have kind of told part of the third season. It would be written by one of the people involved in the writing team that second season. But it fell apart, never got made. 3 years ago, Mark Frost and David Lynch announced that they were doing another season of Twin Peaks. And they wrote. They didn't write episode by episode. They just wrote. And then Lynch began filming, and he filmed it as a movie, not as a TV show. And it was 18 hours when completed. Showtime took it, and in Lynch's contract, they cannot change anything. There were no studio notes. This is Lynch doing exactly what he and David and Mark Frost want. And if you've watched Lynch's other films, if you've watched Lost Highway, if you've watched Mulholland Drive, if you've watched Inland Empire, Lynch is going deeper and deeper into a number of things. One, his idea of evil. Two, that dream quality, that dream-like sense of film, especially if you watch Mulholland Drive. The film, which started actually as a TV pilot, as a continuation of Twin Peaks. It was going to be Audrey Horne in Hollywood. And yet it became something completely different. And then as a movie, it does kind of what Lost Highway does. It takes a main character and changes them halfway through. It shows the darkness of things. Lynch has always been fascinated by a surface of beauty and the darkness underneath. Go back and watch that opening of Twin Peaks. It starts with the beautiful lawn, and then the camera slowly sinks down to the insects under the ground fighting and attacking and tearing at each other. I am a huge fan of David Lynch. Huge fan. I think very few people actually have bought and watched Inland Empire. I did not subscribe to his website because there's only so much you can do. But he's made short films and other things on his website as he delves deeper into this idea. Pure Lynchian philosophy of film and story. A lot of people say that his stuff is surrealistic. It's not. Surrealism is very different. He does impressionism. He takes emotion and makes it visual. So as the new Twin Peaks started, I fully expected there would be people who loved it, and there would be people who hated it, and there would be people who would be very confused by it. I'm going to talk a little about recapping the first 2 episodes, which is all I've seen. I want to take it slow because I watched the 2 episodes when they aired on Showtime Sunday night. It's been 2 nights since then, and I have just been consumed by what I've seen. The visuals, the ideas, the almost putting the story together yourself, much like when you wake up from a dream. You've had a number of different dreams. Every time you have a REM cycle, it's a completely different dream. But when you wake up, the time between those REM cycles is gone because your brain isn't quite on. So in your mind, you fuse those dreams together. Remember the time you've talked to someone about a dream where you said, well, I did this, and then this happened, and then we were here, and then this. And you're trying to create a narrative where there is no narrative. Now, am I saying that Twin Peaks, the 3rd season, is a dream? No, I'm saying he's using dreamlike storytelling and dreamlike imagery to create a mood, to create a world, to deal with his philosophy. And first I want to talk about that philosophy. Biblical philosophy is that evil is something that is outside that man is tempted to. The serpent, Satan, evil, the adversary, tempts otherwise good man into doing bad things. Other people have a philosophy that man is evil and he must learn to be good. Lynch's philosophy in the world of Twin Peaks is that evil is an outside force, the Black Lodge, and we must fight against it, the Bookhouse Boys, other forces, to contain that evil, to keep that evil from spilling over into our world, from taking over our world. And if you look at Twin Peaks like that, if you look at those first 2 episodes, it's a distillation of that philosophy. I'm not going to convince you that it's good. I'm not going to convince you that you should like it. But I am going to convince you that there's something there, that it's more than just Lynch being weird for weirdness' sake. And if you can get into the mindset, if you can figure out what he's doing as a creator, it works. But the other thing is, this is challenging television. This is not easy television. Twin Peaks, the original, at the time it came out, was not easy television. It was about grief writ large. Characters howled with grief. They acted irrationally out of that grief for the death of Laura Palmer. 25 years later, it still echoes. And there's something about Laura Palmer that is still important in this world. So, the opening scene, we're back in the Red Room. I'm just going to call it the Black Lodge. Cooper has been in the Black Lodge since the end of the series. And there, the giant says, remember 430, Richard and Linda, 2 birds with 1 stone. It's in black and white because in the world of Twin Peaks, there's good and there is evil, and they are always at war. And evil is attempting to spread as good tries to push it back. And the giant says, it cannot be said aloud now. You need to remember that as you're watching it. This is not a story that's going to spoon feed you. Television has gotten much, much better. They use a lot more of the filmatic techniques that Lynch did. But Lynch is kind of saying, all right, you learn my tricks? Fine, I'm moving up. I'm moving up a level. I'm going to be doing impressionistic storytelling. I'm going to be taking things apart in ways that no one else can do at this point. The best way to sort of recap what's going on is to kind of take it apart. Things happen out of sequence. So, what I feel is the main plot is Agent Cooper is still trapped in the Black Lodge, where he was told by Laura Palmer's doppelganger, I'll see you again in 25 years. It's 25 years later. Cooper's still in the Black Lodge, and his doppelganger, most likely possessed by Bob, has become... It's hard to say. Is he a hitman? Is he a crime lord? He still has connections to the FBI. But as we found out from characters, when we touch base with some of the characters from the original series at the police station, we find out that there's two Sheriff Harry Trumans, that Kimmy and Andy have had a kid, who, from what I hear, we see in episodes 3 and 4, but they haven't heard from Agent Cooper in 24 years. And Deputy Hawk is still there. He receives a call from the log lady, who gives him cryptic messages that he needs to find Agent Cooper, and that she will be too weak to help. And the actress who passed away soon after her scenes were filmed, it was heartbreaking because the log lady was such a important character in the first series, an interesting character, and the actress herself was very kind and very much beloved by those of us who love Twin Peaks. And seeing her where she said, I'm not going to be strong enough to go with you, kind of letting us know that she wouldn't be with us for this journey. Her log has given the message, and we go on without her. And that's going to be one of the themes through this series, that the people that we knew are not going to be there to go along with us. But Agent Cooper is trapped in the Black Lodge. The man from another place has changed. He is now, some people are describing it as a tree with a fleshy blob at the top, but I saw it as more of a brain with a spinal column, and it could be both. But he announces himself as the arm that the one-armed man cut off in the first series. So they're picking up the pieces, but doing it in an odd way. And in it, Agent Cooper is told he can escape from the lodge, but Bob needs to come back first. However, because the rules are different, Bob doesn't want to come back to the Black Lodge. So the evil Agent Cooper is doing what he can not to be drawn back, while Dale, our Agent Cooper, finds a way to escape, which plays with time. We have in New York City, in some beautiful shots, the overhead shots of New York City were the most beautiful shots of New York City I had ever seen. Excuse me. They were amazing. The light and the movement, it made New York City seem completely alien and different from how you've seen the same shots by other directors. I don't know how he did it, but he made New York feel alien and different. And in a large building, in the middle of nowhere, a young man sits with a bunch of cameras watching a glass box. And he sits and he watches the box because he's being paid to. And the box is very secure. And there's a woman who shows up to bring him coffee. And the guard who's sitting outside the room of the glass box says that no one's allowed in. And that she can't stay. Why does he watch the box? He's being paid to. And the previous person who worked there saw something once. That's all we know about this glass box. And the thing is, it's such a simple metaphor. Lynch is talking about what we're watching on TV now. We just watch this box, waiting for something to happen. And if something doesn't happen, we're going to keep watching. You can take that however you want. I took it as a commentary about television, and the people who are watching this show were watching, waiting for something to happen. And if nothing happens, we're going to keep watching because something happened once. It's happening again. And later, there are various other sequences that happen. But later, the woman shows up again, and the guard's not there. So our man who watches the box brings her in. And they begin to make out. And then it begins to go further. And as they're doing this, the box fills with darkness. Until the darkness bursts free in humanoid form and attacks both of them as they're making love. Yes, sex and violence. Sex in Twin Peaks usually leads to violence, but this was more horrific, more frightening than anything they could have gotten away with on network TV 25 years ago. We also have, in South Dakota, one of Lynch's humor sequences where a woman with her little dog has noticed that there's a smell coming out of her neighbor's apartment. So she calls the police, and the police need to get in, get a key from the caretaker. Well, the caretaker's not there. He's on vacation. Get a key. His brother has a key. Oh, how do we get in touch with his brother? Don't know. Got to ask this guy downstairs, who now thinks that the cops are after him. And after all of this, the woman says, oh, by the way, I have a key. Again, excuse me. This is Lynch's sort of long-form, odd humor leading to terror. So as we go in, there is a body in the bed. There's a head in the bed. The body and the head are not connected. They're two different people. And there are fingerprints all around the apartment of the local school principal, who at first says that he has no idea what's going on, but then he breaks down and confesses that he was there. He doesn't confess to the murder, he confesses that he was there. And as he's in prison, again, another humor sequence where the wife is more concerned about the fact that they have company coming over than the fact that her husband is being taken in by the police. By the way, the high school principal with Matthew Lillard, and everybody's saying, oh, when did he get old? Well, you have to remember that Dazed and Confused came out 25 years ago, too, kids. People get older. Yeah, he was in Scooby-Doo, but that was almost 15 years ago. And as he's in this jail cell, his wife basically confronts him that he's had an affair. He confronts her that she's had an affair. She says he's going to rot in jail. And as he contemplates his fate, the camera moves over, and in one of the cells is a humanoid figure, completely dark, that vanishes. The principal's wife goes home and is promptly killed by evil Dale Cooper. What's this have to do with what the evil Dale's been doing? What's this have to do with the murder of the woman in the apartment? What's this have to do with the fact that it was her head in another human being's body? We don't know yet. It's happening again. It felt like it was something tacked on, which means it could be the main plot. We don't know. Lynch is just throwing things at us, seeing how we handle it, seeing what we deal with. Because this is such a quick turnaround, I am coughing a little bit, and I apologize for that. I was at work, and the last couple of days it's been incredibly busy, so I've been on the phone all day. My voice is pretty shot. I would edit it, but I want to put this up as soon as possible. We touch on some of the other Twin Peaks characters. We see that Ben Cooper and his brother, Ben still runs the Great Northern, and his brother is making a lot of money growing and selling pot. We drop in at the Bang Bang Bar, where Shelley Johnson is having drinks with friends, and the damaged and often biker, James, is looking at her, can't take his eyes off her. However, there's a newcomer who makes pistol hand gestures at her, and we're kind of led to believe that that's someone we know by her reaction. There's a lot that happened in this, but the main part of it is that as Agent Cooper escapes from the Black Lodge, first he comes through the glass box almost as a Christ-like figure, very confused, arms out, floating in space. The box then begins to shift in frame and in time, and Cooper's gone, and he's falling through space again. We then cut to the woman and the man, the woman and the kid who was being paid to watch the box, getting ready to go in the room. Time is shifting. Time isn't. This is not a story that's told linearly. This is not a story that's being told in forward momentum. There are other short things. There's a short sequence in Las Vegas that doesn't seem connected to anything. There's a sequence where Dr. Jacoby is buying shovels at the beginning. Doesn't seem connected to anything. Beautiful, beautiful sequence where Hawk goes into the woods to where the entrance to the Black Lodge was. And if you remember the last episode, the way they got into the Black Lodge was through the water. Hawk is going into the water. All of these things happen. They don't seem connected. There's long sequences of where it seems like nothing is happening. Action is moving slowly. This is Lynch drawing your attention, putting your focus on these things, giving it that unsettling quality. The thing that struck me the most about this, as I was watching it, it manipulated my emotions. It changed my feelings. I felt different things based on how things were filmed. This is impressionism, not surrealism. Every article I read talked about how this was surrealism. It's not surrealism. Surrealism is Salvador Dali. This is impressionism. This is Vincent van Gogh, taking things and heightening them to bring the emotion out. When Cooper is reacting to things in his deadpan way, it heightens them even more. There's a sequence where after Laura Palmer whispers something to him, and they go to kiss, she's pulled out of the Black Lodge screaming. And I tell you what, if that doesn't scare the holy shit out of you, you aren't paying attention. Cheryl Lee, who plays Laura Palmer, still has the creepiest, most disturbing scream I've ever heard. We actually go through, and her father is there. His hair, not white anymore, telling Agent Cooper, find Laura. If you watched Fire Walk with Me, you know that Laura ascended to a type of heaven. If she ascended to a type of heaven, what is she still doing in the Black Lodge? And of course, the question we all want to know is, how's Annie? In Fire Walk with Me, it's intimidated that Annie's dead. I have not read The Secret History of Twin Peaks, but I hear that we catch up on a lot of things. Some of the cliffhangers from the original series are actually resolved in that. At the premiere, when it was shown at a theater, David Lynch told the crowd, I love trees. I love wood. And he talked about the kind of trees that you would be seeing. Lynch is a different kind of storyteller. Lynch does not tell linear stories. He doesn't start at point A and go to point B. He doesn't do the 3-act structure. He's more interested in mood. He's more interested in reaction. He's more interested in the emotion. If you're watching Twin Peaks for a linear story, you're going to be irritated and you're going to be disappointed. Remember, they didn't want to solve the murder of Laura Palmer. They did so because ABC forced them to. And they wouldn't have had to if the ratings had not gone down. Twin Peaks is a bizarre visual ride. If you don't like it, I completely understand. This is not like any TV you've ever seen. Much like how when Twin Peaks hit TV, it was like nothing that had been seen. But there was enough. There were touchstones. There were the soap opera plots. There was the solving of the murder. Agent Cooper was kind of just a quirky, intuitive detective type character. And you had characters who reacted to him to kind of be our surrogate. And wow, that's really odd. There were things that happened that were funny and strange. This is Lynch pulling all of that away. I don't need that anymore. Other TV series have taken up what Twin Peaks did and taken it further. Shows like The X-Files, shows like Fargo, shows like Deadwood. They've taken that cinematic style. They've taken that sort of mystery and taken it further. So Lynch is going in a whole new direction. He's not doing he's not doing a retread. This isn't a reunion show. This is not Fuller House. This is not the X-Files series that Fox did a couple years ago. This is not a reunion. This is not the 4th season of Arrested Development. This is David Lynch doing an 18-hour movie using the plot threads left over from the Twin Peaks show. You're either in it or not. The ratings are in, and it only scored 500,000 people. But that doesn't count. How many people watched it online? How many people streamed it? How many people subscribed to Showtime just to watch it? And here's the beautiful thing. They can't cancel it. The 18 episodes are done. They're in the can. They've been delivered. It's going to show. And then Lynch has kind of said, this is the end. This is ending the series. Now, does that mean he'll leave us another cliffhanger? He probably will, because he's a bastard like that. They went into the end of season 2 knowing they were going to be canceled, and he pulled that shit. But there's another Twin Peaks novel coming out this fall, after the series is over. I am happy to be in this world. I am happy to enjoy this entertainment. I love a good 3-act structure story. The Star Wars movies, Indiana Jones. I just finished the season of Designated Survivor. All of them very capable, well done entertainment. But every once in a while, I want to see something that challenges me, something that makes me think, something that goes beyond normal storytelling. For the people who say he's just weird for the sense of being weird, no. This is what Lynch feels a story should be. He did not start as a filmmaker. He went to college for abstract impressionism. This is abstract impressionism on your screen. You're either in or you're not. It's happening again. And for me, it's successful because it is so far out there. I want to thank you for listening. There aren't any ads because I'm not going to edit this more than putting the music in. This is an instant reaction podcast. I'm going to be doing more instant reaction type podcasts to things. Not a lot of editing. We're doing it live. So I want to thank you for listening. I appreciate all the support we've gotten. The number of listeners we have has really increased over the last 6 months, and I want to thank everybody. I think that we've gone in a new direction that's successful and kind of gotten back to our roots so that we can move and grow forward again. So thank you for listening, and I'll be back soon with more stories.
Cool.
Are you okay? How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie?